Hamlet, Act 1, Scene 4. This scene begins with Hamlet, Horatio, and Marcellus getting pretty worked up as they await the ghost's return. Adding to their mental unrest is the physical discomfort of intense cold and the late hour of mental exhaustion past midnight. Everything is winding up to a sense of being on edge. And then in a foreshadowing literary device, they are startled, but not by what they expected, the shock of the ghost's return, but an explosion from the castle. A really loud party is taking place. Hamlet speaks. The king doth wake tonight and take his rouse, keeps wassail and the swaggering upspring reels, meaning the king revels and carouses rather than sleeping, has a drinking party and staggers through a wild German dance. Bold behavior for someone having murder on their conscience, but even more bold when you consider King Claudius's belief in Christianity. Having committed the great sin of murder, he's blasting heaven with earthly thunder. As he drains his draughts of Rhenish down, Rhine wine, the kettle drum, cannon, and trumpet thus bray out the triumph of his pledge, meaning his success in draining his cup upon making a toast. Claudius is amazingly brash. He's very different here than the Claudius of Act 3, Scene 3, when he will fall to his knees to plead with those heavens. But here in this scene, we are shown the corruption and the uncontrollable world of politics. And with the ghost stalking back and forth upon the castle platform, something is definitely rotten in the state of Denmark. But just as Hamlet distracts everyone's attention away from thoughts of the ghost with explaining the court ritual and philosophical ruminations, the ghost appears, giving them a genuine surprise by catching them off guard. And Hamlet does not know what to make of it. He speaks, "Be thou a spirit of health or a goblin damned. Bring with thee airs from heaven or blasts from hell. Be thy intents wicked or charitable. Thou comest in such a questionable shape that I will speak to thee." The questionable state of the ghost is based upon the conflict between the past and the present. The Catholic belief in purgatory was not shared or permitted by the new Protestant faith. Hamlet's worry about whether this is a spirit of health or a goblin damned depends to a certain extent upon whether or not one could or should believe in a good or honest ghost. Protestants believed that spirits thought to be ghosts were in fact devils, sent here to lure humans into sinful actions. Hamlet responds at first as if he believes the ghost to be the authentic spirit of his father, returned from the dead. But he subsequently expresses serious doubts. In the play's most famous soliloquy, He speaks of death as the undiscovered country from whose bourne or border no traveler returns. And in Act 2, Scene 2, Hamlet speaks, "The spirit that I have seen may be the devil, and the devil hath power to assume a pleasing shape. Yea, and perhaps out of my weakness and my melancholy, as he is very potent with such spirits, abuses me to damn me." But in Act 1, Scene 5, he is more open-minded towards the ghost. Horatio calls the ghost wondrous strange, and Hamlet responds, "And therefore as a stranger give it welcome. There are more things in heaven and earth, Horatio, than are dreamt of in our philosophy." Ultimately, Hamlet will decide in Act 2, Scene 2, "I'll have grounds more relative or relevant than all this." And he devises a plan to know whether or not this is an honest ghost, and it rests upon a theatrical experiment. As he puts it, "The play's the thing, wherein I'll catch the conscience of the king." Lastly, in closing, I would just like to return to Hamlet's philosophical ruminations on the nature of being that occurred earlier in this scene. When he speaks of how nature cannot choose its origin, a contemporary philosopher, the neuroscientist Sam Harris, shares Hamlet's view that nature cannot choose its origin. When he talks about how no one picks their parents or the society to which they are born, no one picks the moment in history in which they live, no one picks their genes, you didn't pick the microstructure of your brain. As a neuroscientist, he talks about how no one picks the number of receptors that you have of every type and at every synapse. You didn't pick all the charges that are in place in your brain. In essence, he argues that you haven't created your neurophysiology, and yet your neurophysiology is going to give rise to every next thought and intention that shows up for you. And with all this background, Sam Harris launches into the debate about free will.